This is John for MTG Nexus, doing some more Izzet Phoenix this week. This particular week we are doing something a little bit different. For the most part, I've been focusing on Drake Patel's version of Izzet Phoenix with Aria Flame in the main, which was kind of a variant of a list Jerry T started off with. This week we're going to try Drake Sasser's classic winning list, or classic top 8 list from a couple weekends ago. His list is notably different for the inclusion of things like Pyromancer's Ascension and Crackling Drake. This is kind of the second or third iteration of a deck. Obviously, when it first came out, that people were playing things like Monster Swift Spear, then Crackling Drake and Terramander became a thing, and Pyromancer's Ascension kind of became the go-to tertiary threat in a lot of spots. The weaknesses of Pyromancer's Ascension is it is a bit more graveyard-centric. You're more vulnerable to things like Rest in Peace, Leyline in the Void, and such out of the board. As such, he does have copies of Aria Flame on the sideboard. A note before we get into these videos is I have never played with the Pyromancer's Ascension version of Izzet Phoenix. There was a gap where I played it on the channel where I was playing the Terramander version and I played the Crackling Drake version, but I don't think I've ever actually played the Pyromancer's Ascension version. So as we're going through the league, keep that in mind that this is my first time actually playing with the card Pyromancer's Ascension in this particular style of deck. Also, as a friendly reminder, if you like what you're seeing on the channel, please consider subscribing, giving us a thumbs up, leaving a constructive comment down below, so we can become the most informative lightning bolt-based channel in modern on YouTube. So beyond that, interesting choices for those of you that are familiar with the Aria Flame version. Things like Gutshot in the deck as were surgical extractions. No lava darts in the list. There's a flame slash instead of magmatic explosion. Because obviously you're kind of fighting with Pyromancer's Ascension over resources in the graveyard. Funeral Promise still probably very powerful in this version. And then beyond that, you have your usual cantrip and Thing in the Ice, Arclight Phoenix base. Sideboard, his board's a little bit different. He has a second copy of Flame Slash for any type of creature decks. Copies of Aria Flame when you're going against grindier decks. They're bringing in Graveyard Hate, Blood Moon, obviously still pretty good in the same matchups. We usually bring in Ravenous Trap against any type of graveyard decks. Only 3 pieces of spell-based interaction. I believe when he was streaming the deck again, he replaced one of the Spell Pierces with the Force of Negation. We're going to leave this as is. And Jace obviously comes in against the grinding matchups, things like blue-white, things like Jeskai, although it's less effective against Jeskai, against Jund, against green-black rock. A lot of the same spots we would be bringing in Narset and Saheeli Rock, or Saheeli, whatever, Artificer card. Should probably just look at the list, huh? Saheeli Sublime Artificer. So, that said, let's get into some matches and see how this particular version of the deck does, keeping in mind Pyromancer's Ascension obviously different than Aria Flame, especially in Game 1. So we're back with match number 1. Looks like we'll be on the draw this particular go-around. The Drake Patel list has continued to perform very, very well in the local meta that I'm in. This hand's pretty easy keep. We have an early Thing in the Ice, so hand's pretty easy to keep. Another thing in his list is he's only running one copy of one copy of Mountain and running 3 copies of Steam Vents. Ooh, Mill's gonna be a little bit rough. Hopefully we don't get hit by a managed to beat Mill before with the Aria Flame version, but that was a little bit different. Them flipping a surgical extraction is a little bit scary. Yep. Alright, so gave us an Arclight Phoenix. That's kind of nice of you. Don't know if that's going to be terribly relevant. Kind of awkward that we did that way, given our land situation. Looks like you don't have an answer to that, do you? Alright, so quick thing flip. I believe when I took on this matchup, I got lucky and won with Phoenix's game 1. Kind of floundered otherwise. Pyromancer's Ascension, definitely a consideration to leave that in. I think we want to bring in the Aria Flames. Definitely want the access to the Force of Negations and the Spell Pierces. One thing they tend to have is they tend to have things like Ensnaring Bridge or Crypt Incursion, which allow them to prolong the game just long enough to win. Beyond that, Jace is kind of useless in the matchup. He's just too slow. It's kind of it's almost a pseudo race. They're kind of like I consider Mill kind of like a slower version of Burn in terms of what it's trying to do. The fact that we're a cantrip deck kind of plays into their strategy a little bit. Beyond that, Gutshot obviously pretty easy cut. Flame Slash also an easy cut. Bolts are reasonable, although they only have so many targets. Pyromancer's Ascension is interesting. Like, if their hate card is simply Surgical Extraction, Pyromancer's Ascension's fine. If they have ley lines in addition to the Surgical Extractions, I think the card's terrible. So I don't know if I'm supposed to be boarding it out right now. Beyond that, I mean, the only other cuts really are probably things like Graveyard Hate or Graveyard based things. So maybe we're supposed to be just cutting the Ascensions. Maybe we're supposed to be cutting a Finale of Promise. I think for right now I'm going to go ahead and cut a Bolt and a Finale of Promise and try it like that until we see exactly like what kind of hate our opponent has. Been seeing a little bit of Mill pop up here and there. I think I played against it with Burn. Was it in this week's league? I think I might have been played with it against Burn in this week's league too. This hand's a mulligan. We have like Force of Negation and Echoing Truth, but we have no. If this was like a blue source, like the one on Mountain comes back to bite you in situations like this. Once again, same problem. This hand's fine, I guess. We're on the Aria Flame plan, so I think I put back Thought Scour. Probably gonna get crabbed here. Nope. Discard spell. Yeah, that's kind of unfortunate, especially on a mulligan to 5. Let's take Aria Flame here. Use Sleight of Hand, because Serum Visions is kind of useless in these situations. I'm not saying Serum Visions is like completely useless, but like the Scry is like completely worthless. So probably gonna get hit with an Archive Trap here. That's fine, I guess. Apparently not. Yep. Just have all the answers. Alright. Alright, there's a thing in the ice. Should have just bottomed that, I suppose. Yeah, take the thing in the ice. Pass turn. So it looks like we're hoping to draw another land. They're in a much more controlling build post board. Probably take Finale here, because Thing in the Ice they can just resolve if they, if we flip this Thing in the Ice. You have a Collective Brutality. This kind of sucks. Let's kill the Snappy so they don't get back with Thing in the Ice here. Kind of a 6 slow roll if they have a Fatal Push this whole time. It's a solid top deck. Probably just gonna get milled anyway, unfortunately. We'll get lucky and draw a blue card here. We do. Cool. Alright, and we got there against Mill. Despite them taking a more controlling approach in the post-board games. This has been John from TG Nexus. Yeah, we're back for match number 2 with Drake Sasser's version of the deck. It's fine. Got a bunch of cantrips, so kind of hard to say what exactly will be coughed up. We have an Arc like Phoenix, which could either be great or subpar if we don't find a Faithless Looting here. On small getting. So we just get a basic island here. Get off on Serum Visions. I think we put the land in the bottom. We're definitely interested in the Faithless Looting for next turn. Temple of Malice. That's generally a bad sign. Probably means Grishoalbrand. maximize our chances to hit some birds. That and a land in the yard. Not a ton of pressure, but at least we have pressure going, I guess. It's an interesting one. Yep. So, we're in some trouble here. Sure. Let's draw on most of their deck. So you have Boborio Gamos and? I'm not sure how you're planning on winning here, friend. Sure. Alright, yeah. It's kind of a ballsy thing to have that and, whatchamacallit in your deck. Alright, let's bring in the Ravenous Traps. Bring in those. Bring in the Spell Pierce. Don't really think our own graveyard's going to be under too much attack. Get rid of the Gut Shots. Flame Slash. Some out of bolts. So I'd love to play first. This hand's very cantrippy. Not a whole lot of interaction. I think we still keep it though. Could definitely die before we do anything here. Okay, sure. Last turn. Hopefully it won't get Emrakul here. Looking like we're gonna get Emrakul. Fortunately they hit lands, so we're dead. Alright. Well, that's what happens when you kind of play the version that doesn't have surgical extractions in the main. You're a little bit more vulnerable to that kind of nonsense, plus your opponent having Chalice out of Grisbull or whatever the... I don't even know. It's way too many creatures to keep track of. They had at least one Emrakul, Grishoalbrands, Boborio Gamoses, Ilharg. Not a deck you see a ton of anyway, so we'll be back in a bit with match number 3. So for those of you wondering about our opponent's deck that we were playing against, this is actually the exact same opponent we played, Rinko. His list is very interesting. It was just a 1 of Emrakul the Promised End, or Emrakul the Tron, if he's playing a very similar list. He has access to Emrakul, Grishoalbrand, World's Bloodworm, and the Ilharg is like literally a 1 of out of the sideboard. And then we saw him playing him or her play Ransack the Lab. Seems like a solid card. They're playing Faithless Looting, Collective Brutality as ways to get creatures in the graveyard. Chalice of the Void was a 2 of in their sideboard. Then they have a bunch of other stuff going on here. Could have run Impact and Negations against us, defense grids. Looks like they were fairly prepared for counter magic. We just didn't put them on quite fast enough clock. We did die on turn 4, which is pretty reasonable in Modern. That previous game where we kind of floundered a little bit and they killed us on like what, turn 3 or turn 4. You know, sometimes you Grishoalbrand, draw your entire deck. Sometimes you just Ilharg or World's Bloodworm, try to kill them that way. So just wanted to give everybody a updated version of that particular deck. So anywho, we'll be on to match number 3. We're back for match number 3. First couple matches have been a bit bizarre. I think all the leagues this week have been this is an interesting hand. 4 lands, obviously more than we like, but we have Thing in the Ice, we have Arclight Phoenix. I think I'm inclined to keep this hand. If we find any type of cantrips, usually we can kind of chain off from there. So definitely be a hand to kind of throw out there to the Arclight Phoenix community if this is a keep or a mulligan. Well, against Tron, probably a mulligan. Ah, good old Eldrazi Tron. Tariq's sideboard against this particular good old Tron. Oh, it's mono blue Tron. Good lord. Man, we are playing some weird decks today. Last turn. Feel like we're gonna get remanded on this one. Just condescend? Sure. Looks like he's on the... Alright. They have 4 copies of Leyline in the Void in their sideboard. Pouring out that, pouring out the gut shots. Would love to have something like a Braid in our deck right now. Flame Slash is kind of useless. And then probably 2 copies of Bolt. Now they have Promise, kind of leaving us a little bit vulnerable to Graveyard Heat, but not really. Yeah, guess we keep this hand, see if we get turn 0 Leyline. No? Alright. Spewed a lot of cards, didn't see an Izzet Phoenix, now we're going to get Chaliced on one here. Let's hold on to our cantrips, I guess. Do I try to jam Jace here? Alright. Such a frustrating matchup. What a weird week it's been. Anyways, we'll be back in a bit with match number 3. Hey, we're back with match number 4. Once again, no cantrips and a 4-lander. Still think we keep this hand with multiple things in the ice. But if you think we should be doing something else, please feel free to sound off in the comments. One of the things, like, I've played Phoenix quite a bit, but I'm still learning, like, subtle things like mulligans and whatnot. So, snow-covered island. That's kind of terrifying. Spell snare? I'll just opt. Okay. Still not quite sure what our opponent's on. Island into opt is so many different decks. Yep, this is going to get hit by a logic knot. I'm telling my opponent there, it's been a really weird week. Jeez. Okay. Maybe this will resolve. Probably not, but maybe it'll resolve. And the awkward one of Flame Slash really comes back to bite us in the hind end. Shit. Main deck, rest in peace. Fudge me. Bring in the Blood Moons, bring in that, bring in the Jace. Force of Negations in that. Go down the Ascensions, go down at least one copy of Finalia Promise. Go down the Flame Slashes. Hopefully got shots. Couple copies of Bolt. Hand's fine, we don't even know what it'll be, so. that just to get a path on one. Seems about right. Oh, man. Not only we're getting beat by a blue-white opponent, apparently we're getting beat down by a blue-white opponent who doesn't even understand how force of negation works. Sure, off the way, friend. Yeah, Lyra's a thing, sort of. Unfortunately, that's not going to build a race. A Lyra on its own. a chance next turn. Feel real bad. Oh, we shouldn't have won that game. Unfortunately, our opponent's now seen most of the tricks up our sleeve, so still don't think we bring in anything other than the Echoing Truth. Or for... yeah, sounds fun. Not like this thing in the ice is surviving, but, you know. Getting hit by a Logic Knot. Definitely interested in both those cards. Bloodmoon's not extremely effective on this board, but it'll still be reasonable. Kind of overhanded our opponent keep. Thopter Snare, go! Snare Thopter. Question is, if your opponent has Celestial Purge here, what do you take out? How have I not hit a Faithless Looting or any of that nonsense so far? This is comically pathetic. I don't even think I care about Rest in Peace right now. Wow. Somehow we beat Blue Eye Control. Weird league. We'll be back in a bit with match number 5. Hey, we're back with match number 5 here with Drake Sasser's version of Izzet Phoenix. Still think we keep his hand. Not quite sure what we're looking for yet, so. So looks like we're up against Jeskai Ascendency. Crackling Drake feels too slow. Arclight's fine if we find a Faithless Looting, I guess. We upkeep mill that. very easily die next turn. Ascension. We just try to go for the kill here, right? Is Manamorphose the only cantrip I currently have access to? So if I bolt that, get a 7. Could play Ascension. Let's just kill that. Yes, I'd like to use its ability. So I can put them to 1, but 1 is not 0. Good chance we're dead here. So there's some small consideration if they cast that. We could kill them with a combination of Bolt plus Gut Shot. Let's move on to this nonsense. We're dead here. Blood Moon seems excellent. Anger of the Gods seems perfectly reasonable. Man, we gotta play the weird league. Jeskai, Ascendency. No decks found. Tells you how well that deck's been doing. Do we think they're really... they probably won't be bringing in Graveyard Heat. Like, what cards don't matter in this matchup? Flame Slash is kind of... eh. Spell Pierce... Echoing Truth could potentially get it off the board. Gutshot's fine in the matchup. This is like a weird situation where our Spell Pierces and stuff are reasonable, our Anger of the Gods is reasonable, and Blood Moon is reasonable. It's like we're boarding like we're the control deck, which is kind of weird. Yeah, hand seems interesting. Obviously they could go like turn 1 mana Dork into turn 2 Ascendency, but I guess we got that covered with Lightning Bolt here. They're definitely a deck that's potentially vulnerable to Blood Moon. So... see if they pick up on the subtleties here. I think I'm interested in both these cards, question mark. Sure. Okay. Looks like they're looking to find a Carotid. Just Manamorphose and the Manamorphose. Sure. Burning a lot of fuel, friend. Yeah. You have a surgical extraction or something here? completely lock you out of the game, pretty much. Alright. Do we change how we play the game? Still don't think so. This hand's fine. Hopefully they don't have carotid. Looks like they're not going to have carotid this turn at least. Sure. Please don't have another carotid. Yep, Faithless Looting, sure. And good game. Alright. So, thoughts on the deck? There's some amount of things I'm interested in. There's some amount of things I think are kind of garbage in this list. Don't know how I feel about the 3 1 split on mountain and 3 steam vents. It does make some amount of sense to me because I have, even in that league, we had a couple hands where the 1 mountain was such a miserable opening as our only land. Didn't really get a chance to see Ascension do its thing. Still not sure how I feel about that card. Crackling Drake in a couple spots was fine. Still the one-shot kill thing. Obviously, pretty much the rest of the sideboard was pretty reasonable. The only thing I would think of, like, to a certain extent, I like Drake's list. I like the thought of having additional threats in Crackling Drake. Gut Shot, I mean, between this and Surgical Extraction and Flame Jab, I think Flame Slash should still be Magmatic Explosion, especially if you cut the Ascensions for, like, Aria Flames in the main deck. But honestly, I would need to play with the list more. Like, we didn't really get a chance to see Ascension shine. Aria Flame didn't really do a whole lot. Mostly this was, I don't know. This league was kind of Blood Moon shine through in the 2 matchups we won. It's obviously a very powerful card, even against something like Blue-White Control. I don't know. We played some really weird matchups. Like, Garoyo's Vengeance is just a brutal matchup if you don't have exactly the right cards at the right time. Blue Tron is a weird matchup for any type of mid-range deck, especially when they're main decking. That particular version was main decking 4 Chalices. It was just a weird league. We'd honestly need some more reps with this particular style of the deck to kind of get a gauge on whether it's good or not. Wish I had more to go from that. I know we had a couple loose keeps. Those 4 landers with, like, Thing in the Ice, Random Spell, and, like, Bolt or something. But I'm trying to keep a wide variety of hands with the deck. Like, obviously I'm not going to keep a 5-lander, but 3 or 4 lands seems reasonable. Especially if you hit... Basically, if you hit 1 cantrip, a lot of times you're going to hit a 2nd, 3rd, and 4th cantrip. So this deck is really resilient in that, and consistent in that way. Beyond that, the deck's fine. I mean, really don't know what else to say other than I need more practice with this particular version, which we're definitely going to do probably next week, and then we'll probably be back to Tariq's list. But definitely been solid. If you have any experience with the Pyromancer's Ascension version of the deck, feel free to sound off in the comments. This has been John for MTG Nexus. Everybody has a great day.